Hey, what's going on, my beautiful people? Trying something new today. I'm giving you guys a different scenery than what you normally see on my channel. This is the route that I normally take when I go for my walks in between coaching calls, and when I'm just trying to gather my thoughts and come up with brand new ideas. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about anxious attachers and their experience from all the people that I've worked with, from my experience, from many of the coaching clients that I've worked with, just their struggles and how they overcame those struggles and how I helped them to overcome those struggles. And I think a major part of it when it comes to anxious attachment and dealing with those past injuries or past traumas, not to sound too therapeutic, but I just see it as it is what it is. This is what made you. This is how you got to where you're at in life. When you think of a dynamic where, let's say a person keeps coming in and out of your life and you allow it, it feels safe enough to stick around, but it also feels like, all right, I deserve more and I deserve better than this. But there's just something about it where you can't really break that bond that you have with that person. You can't say no, and you have a hard time setting boundaries. And this is where I get a lot of guys that I coach, they get in this situation where they can't set the boundaries anymore because they've already created a dynamic to where it feels like they're stuck, And I tell them all the time, I say, that's going to be a situation where you're physically single, but you're emotionally still in a relationship, which means they can continue to have these other relationships themselves while you're here trying to wait for them to make up their mind. How I break it down for them is I have them really turn inward and look back at their history, look back at the things that they're used to seeing in their household, right? For example, a lot of us repress those feelings and those experiences because we didn't want to believe they happened. As you get further away from your upbringing or a relationship that was unhealthy for you, we repress the negative. I think it's called fade and bias effect. We only see the positive. This is why when people tell you to go into no contact, it's because they want that fade and bias effect to kick in. Because as you get further away, you start to see the good, even in your childhood. Let's say a dad was abusive, and as you get older, you start to think, all right, well, he was just tough. He was just showing me tough love. This was something that, other people should have had in their household too. I was reading a book by Tara Westover called Educated. And she was in this household where they were Mormon, and some of the things that she was being exposed to, she started to see that as being unhealthy as they got old. As she got older, she started to realize that this was something that was not a great experience for me. As she got out into the open world, that some of the things that she was taught was almost a sort of brainwashing. So it was a great book. If you guys are interested in like memoirs, the book Educated by Tara Westover is a really good one. But it also is a great book as far as researching on certain types of traumas that you've been through and the things that we naturally normalize because we didn't know any better. Our caregivers are the first human interactions that we have with anyone in our life. So if you got caught up in a dynamic where, this is my lake. So if you got caught up in a dynamic where you feel that you can't escape from because you're fearing that abandonment, go back and look at your history. Go back and look at, this is why I like the journaling aspect of it. Journal what the relationship actually was and not what you perceived it to be, or not what you've repressed to not want to remember. So, and I don't have people do this because I want them to paint a bad picture of their caregivers or for them to like have someone to blame. It's more like understanding, like deep and thoroughly, where you come from. When you go to the doctor, One of the things that they have on that questionnaire is, you know, what's your family history like? Anyone exposed to diabetes or cancer or any of these type, heart disease, stroke? You know, they ask those questions for a reason, because they know that where you come from is going to have a major impact on, you know, even your genetic makeup, like your DNA. So it's no different with relationships. When you ask these, you should really ask yourself these questions. Where did this come from? And don't paint it as like, all right, well, I have to cut that person off. Some scenarios, I'm not gonna lie, some scenarios you have to cut those people off, because you can't heal unless you kind of put those issues to bed. But for the most part, you're doing this just to get a deeper comprehension and deeper understanding of who you are as a person and how you relate to people in relationships. Most of the time, it's going to take for you to do some research about your parents' history. This is where a lot of the work come in, where people start to realize just the type of attachment style that their parents had, you know, like their dad and their mom. You know, this is when the light bulb goes on for some people and they realize, well, I think dad might have been codependent, which is a whole nother ball of wax, because if you were modeled codependent behaviors as a child, or you saw nothing but those codependent relationships, you're going to most likely normalize it, internalize it subconsciously, and recycle those relationships as you get older. I love this place. Be still and know that I'm God. Anytime I come out here, I think of that. I think of that quote. But get honest with yourself, right? Really, really break down the nuts and bolts of your personality, your past relationships. I mean, there are a lot of people who could have grew up in a secure environment, but was stuck in this unsafe pattern with people in relationships, and turned out to be more anxious because of it. They turn out to adapt to unhealthiness in relationships and become more anxious because they feel like, all right, I'm going to have to be the one that does all the tugging. Because in relationships, you know, in those insecure ones, I like to look at it as like a tug of war. You know, where the avoidant is the one that's kind of letting you do all the pulling, and then eventually they just let the rope go and let you fall to the floor. So ask yourself, why do I feel the need to tug more? And write about it. Reflect on it. Go out to somewhere in nature and just really think. Disconnect from technology. Understand who you are at your core, and make some decisions that is probably going to affect the rest of your life. And it's never too late to do it. I say the sooner the better. I made a comment before people didn't quite agree with, but I don't care, because I feel what I feel, and this is my truth. You are your own best therapist. Therapy and counseling and coaching is supposed to be something that you work out of, because you can figure it out on your own after that. The problem is, some people have these breakthroughs and they feel like I can take the reins from here, when they actually weren't. It was a short-term victory that couldn't be sustained in the long run. So they end up backsliding or repeating the same cycles over and over. Whenever I ask someone, you know, have you ever done therapy? And they say they quit, and it was a reasonably short amount of time that they were in there, I have to let them know you may not have been completely healed. If you think about it in medical terms, you stopped taking your antibiotics before you took the full course, right? So that's it. Love you guys. Thank you for always supporting the channel. Thank you for taking this stroll with me today. Always remember, when you go be loved, you'll never have to find it.